105 years ago, my grandmother, Sally Gertrude Johnson, left Sweden at age 15 with her sister. They traveled here by ship. They didn't know English. They had a suitcase and $20 between them. They lived with strangers at a host family, and my grandmother learned to speak English because her host family wife decided she needed to communicate better, so they used the Sears Roebuck catalog to figure out how to communicate. I became very interested in my grandma's history, not only as a child, but even more so when I moved across the country to California after I got married. And when I would come home, I would take the only technology available to me at the time, my Panasonic tape recorder, and sit it on her lap and talk with her about the stories of not only coming across the ocean and being processed through Ellis Island, but what it was like to be a child in Sweden, how she met my grandfather, what it was like to live through the Depression and times on the farm. I shared some of these stories with my cousins, who are all about my age, but I realized that the other generations in our family didn't really know these stories. So a few years ago, we had a family reunion. All of these people are descendants of my grandma and her husband Hugo, and there's only about 6 of them in this group that actually really had a relationship with my grandmother. Now, she's been gone for over 30 years, and so this reunion was really a time for all of us to see each other and honor her. So I couldn't play the Panasonic tape recorder. The quality is really poor. It just wouldn't have worked. So instead, I did a little storytelling to mostly all these little ones here in the front. And it was really enjoyable for me because I was able to not only honor my grandma, but I saw that they were actually interested in what I was saying. So that gave me an idea. It wasn't necessarily the first time I'd had this idea, but I recently went through the Co-Starters program with Andrew. And I started that on one mission, and I ended up in a different place. Pivot, as they taught us, 2 times. So this reunion caused me to Moments Remembered by Sally. That's what is the working title, Moments Remembered, of the new business or a spin-off business that I'm starting in conjunction with my son, who owns Pat Clark Productions. So why do we tell stories? We do it for entertainment and education, cultural preservation, and also to instill moral values. And our contact with the past really helps us know our present and helps us identify our future. Moments Remembered is video interviews with storytellers. I want to do families, family historians who want to capture and document maybe some of their older relatives or even themselves. None of us are too old to tell our story. And we also don't want to wait until we are too old, because then we can't tell it. I also want to work with businesses that want to honor key employees or talk about their business history, again, to document and share on the social media that we all participate in these days. But really, I also want to just find good storytellers and want to interview interesting people. So to that end, when we talk about families, there are lots of opportunities and events that could prompt someone to maybe be the moment that they want to try and start capturing, whether it be a reunion or a birthday, an anniversary. Memorial is not so much my goal. We don't want people to think, oh, you're capturing me because I'm getting ready to leave the earth soon. No, that's not the point. And then I want to help businesses with award winners or special recognition, retirement, any kind of historical documentation. This helps employees know that they are really valued and appreciated. So each project, of course, will be custom. And this will be an investment for the people that will do it. Capturing the video documentation is just a small portion of it. The rest comes through the editing process or gathering some information. Now, I do not want to be a historian that's going to take their box of pictures and organize them and do that. I have resources where I can send them or where they want to transfer their old movies. I want to actually build something new. It doesn't mean that those items can't be incorporated into this story somehow, but that's not the main goal. It's for an interview. And I want them to tell me a story about a moment that they remember. How do we do that? It's hard to get people to talk about that sometimes. So my spin is going to be something that I just experienced a few weeks ago at another women's networking group that I attended. The speaker asked us to each take a card from the table and write down 10 things we were proud of. There were over 20 women in this room, and we all busily started writing. You know, you get down to about 7, and you're like, okay, what else can I do? But you know, it was a great exercise, and it made me think about things I hadn't thought about in a long time. And of course, there were women of every age in this group, and so the lists were quite diverse. But I thought that would be a good way to actually do some pre-work with the family or the person that's being interviewed, and let that be the guide to how we start the discussion. I have done several of these already. Passion projects, an uncle who was the World War II hero, crashed his plane, all these great stories that he used to tell when he was 80, but I waited till he was 92, and I couldn't get it. It was too late. He lived to 101, but he didn't have the same vigor in his storytelling at 92 as he did throughout his life when I was growing up with him. So that's why my customer is not necessarily your grandparents or even your parents. It's you. It's you who want to capture some things about the people that you know and love, or share some things about yourself. It'd be a nice time capsule to do it at 40 and 60 and 80. Kind of a thing. So each project's custom. It'll start out with an hour consultation to find out what your direction is. I did one yesterday, and the beginning of the project was the concept that this client had was not going to work. And we talked through it about ways of accomplishing that same thing. You can't put 30 people in a room and set a microphone in the middle of the table and a video camera at the end and have them tell stories to each other. Doesn't work. So we talked about how to accomplish those kinds of things. So that's my Moments Remembered. My name is Beth Clark, and this is how you could get a hold of me. So now I understand the forum is Q&A, right?
So question, when your family came from Sweden, did they come through Peoria?
They did not.
No.
No, but my grandma started in Illinois, outside of Knoxville, in Galesburg, just about an hour from here. And she and her sister actually lived in 2 separate little towns, Dahinda and I don't remember the other one. Yeah, on farms.
Yeah, I just mentioned it because I live in the little town of Alta. Last year and a half, I've done family history on everybody that's come through that little area, and there's a lot of Swedish.
Oh, yes.
So I was looking at the names like, I think that's from here.
Well, she was Carlson when she came, and I've had relatives go to Ellis Island to try and find it, and they haven't, because there's so many different spellings and things. But anyway, yeah.
So I think your idea is fantastic.
Thanks.
I mean, my wife is, why didn't I get these stories from my dad or my grandma or whatever? And that said, the youthful generation is here and now. So I would think your audience is maybe, people that have parents that are getting older, that are living, who have stories. I mean, not all stories left are like from the greatest generation, like World War II or whatever, but they're still just as important.
Absolutely.
And one thing I could think of is there you're going to make obviously a video production of this and interesting, and just with all your son's magic or whatever. Is there going to be something like that they could just even in the script of the video edit to text, so you might hand out a booklet to or a book? Or?
Absolutely. In
Yeah.
fact, I transcribed my grandma's discussions from the tape recorder. I even put in all her little mannerisms, like she would always go, and kind of hum. I'd put, because, you know, if you're listening to it, she had such a sweet little Swedish accent that some of it, you know, if you weren't aware of it, you might miss. So, but yeah, that's a great spin-off idea. So it kind of depends on what the person desires. If they don't know, I've got some suggestions. So during co-starters, one of the things that we had to do was kind of proof of concept. Does anybody really agree that they would like this, and are they willing to pay for it? I did a few interviews and found that yes, there were people interested in it. But I also found a website, which was my real proof of concept. There's a company called Legacy Videos out of Chicago, been in business for 10 years. I've not spoken with her yet, but I will. And she did everything on her website. So flattery being the most, no, imitation being the most sincere form of flattery, I'm going to absolutely refer to her website many times as I'm setting up this structure. But mostly her package was create an hour video. I want to instead do something that I think younger people will watch. 3 to 4 minute little snippets of things that can be posted on a channel for the family. So, you know, they can look it up on their phones and not lose interest. Instead of sitting down to watch an hour video sometimes is, unless you're at a family reunion or at an event, a lot of people won't do it. Now, a few years ago, I captured one of my favorite teachers. She was also a friend of our family. Her name was Jill, and she was one of those storytellers that is one in a million. I set the camera up on the table, and I said, "Tell me when you were born." And she gave me the date, and then immediately went into this dissertation about that it was the same time that Hitler was crossing the Rhine. And I said, you know, here you're telling me about World War II in the very first sentence. And she immediately went on to, because I had such a passion for it. And everything that she did was so expressive. That's the last question I had to ask her. She talked. She just talked for hours and hours. So I took about 5 minutes of it that addressed how she felt about teaching and how she embraced her students, and put that into a little video. Did a music video kind of at the end of it with pictures of her and just a little, one of her favorite songs, and posted it. And I've had over 2,000 views on it, just on my private YouTube channel, because I shared it with at my high school reunions and on their Facebook pages. And everybody so enjoys still seeing her and remembering what a kind person and how fun she was to have as a teacher and as a friend. So there are people that don't want to do this, but there are lots that do. So I'm not going to be concerned about, like I met a girlfriend yesterday and she goes, "Really? People want to do that?" I said, "Yes, some do. I know you don't, but some do." So I want to find those that do.
And they don't know now, but it's after, oh, you know what, I need help.
Yes, yes. I mean, at the same time that she told me she wasn't interested in it, she shared with me all the regret she has for not knowing more stories about her mother-in-law who just passed a few months ago. And why didn't I do that? And why didn't I do this? I also watched a movie the other night that was, it had a couple of really great lines in it. And one of them was, you know, it was a funeral eulogy, and he said, "I left nothing unsaid, and there's nothing that she needed to say to me. I'm at peace with all of this." And I think that's another benefit here too, that sometimes in chatting with people, we don't want to always tell them our innermost feelings sometimes. But, you know, I can pull that out of people. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's great value, at least from our family culture, with this. That every Monday evening, we get together as a family, and we have a family history spotlight.
What a wonderful thing.
We've had a lot of people contribute over the years, and it's just a fun thing for the kids to pick up through some type of record, either through grandparents' autobiographies or just pictures that we've collected. And that's a great thing.
Yeah.
As you mentioned this, one of the things I've tried to add to our family, as I look at, we have still shots, we've got large biographies. I was curious with our family as far as the maturation with them, thinking and talking. And so we started 7 years ago. I don't know if this will be useful, but New Year's Eve, we all record a 5-minute snippet just of the kids. I don't do any editing, but I would love them to see, and future husbands to see how they thought when they were small, and just have,
Yes.
I don't know what the time of that is, how much that, rolls up to be once they're married, but to have an hour,
Yeah.
just 5 minutes each year, and for them to say, here's your spouse, watch them grow.
So
But
how?
it's tough.
Well, it is. You have to be disciplined. And
Yeah.
I applaud you for doing that. But
Yeah.
then what do you do? How do you put them together, or where are they archived? And
So I haven't gone that farther, then we just store them on the hard drive, but
Yeah.
most of us are lazy when it comes to those things that really matter.
yeah,
I mean, if you could put together like an annual, hey, reminder, get on our website and record 5 minutes, we'll do the rest. I mean,
yeah.
that could be an interesting thing.
That is a great idea.
We're usually, as was mentioned, the things that we value most, during our deathbed, we're like, oh, shoot. But,
Yeah.
So we just try to say, hey, every New Year's Eve, let's just record a couple minutes with the kids. Doesn't have to be professionally done, just
Yeah.
have them talk, and that would be valuable. But,
Well,
I don't know if that's useful to you.
It is. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have recalled that I did that about 20 years ago when we came back to visit. We were living in California, moved back here in 2001. But we'd come back every summer. My dad had a house on the lake, and my brother and sister would come. All of the kids would get together. And one year, I had the great big video camera on my shoulder, but I set it up on a tripod.
Have the bag on it, or-
Oh, no, I didn't have the bag one. But I set it up on a tripod in one of the rooms, and I made every kid come in and tell me how old they were and their name and who their best friend was, what their favorite color, just some of them were more vocal than others. And I did it with the adults, too. But it was on an old VHS tape. And I'm not sure where that is. I really want to find it. I mean, I have them all. So I'm going to be kind of my own first customer in that I just got 2 new cameras because I have a focus problem with some of those good cameras, these old eyes. So I just bought 2 new autofocus cameras, and I'm going to start next week with my parents. I haven't missed it yet. They're both 85 and 86 respectively, but I need to do it now. And so they're going to be my first guinea pigs. And then I'm going to send all my tapes that I haven't converted over to digital into a service, and I'm going to try and find that. But I love that idea. Yeah.
Have you considered providing, and I'm not sure that I understand exactly what your finished product looks like in terms of how it's delivered. I'm assuming there's some tangible takeaway and some physical media that you're sharing. But are you considering also basically creating an archiving service so that not just some of the stuff that you've produced for people, or specifically exactly the stuff that you've produced for people, could be backed up so that they could come to your website and say, oh my gosh, we lost the copy of whatever it was that you gave us, and we loved it so much, but we'd really love to be able to access that in the future, or provide access to relatives that are out of the country, or that
Sure.
kind of thing, and just maintain that stuff, because so much of this current media is, well, as you mentioned, VHS tapes going obsolete and things like that.
Or even all the stuff we capture on our phone, how do we look at that again?
Right.
I mean, there's got to be a better way, and I want to learn what that better way is of keeping it. I know my nieces know because they take hundreds of pictures of their kids, and they have ways. There's an app that they use to archive them. So the final deliverable will be a digital file of the movies that's been made. I would suggest that they each do their own YouTube channel where I can upload it for them, but they have control of it. I'm not going to put it on my website in case something ever happens to my website. I want them to be in control of it. It will still back it up, give them a hard copy, probably on a flash drive, put it in their computer, upload it where they want. As far as putting together archival, I really have no interest in putting together somebody else's pictures and videos types of things. During my research on this, during Co-Starters, I found that there are several services that do that. There are people who like to, that's not my thing. I want to know who all those people are so that I can refer them there. And I think as easy as it is to kind of make photo books now through all of the sites, I don't mind doing that. If their photos are all organized and they just want somebody to help them kind of do that for that hard copy takeaway, that'd be great. You know, I wouldn't mind helping with that. I have visited most recently with a woman who does downsizing and helps people move. If they're leaving their home, they don't have family to help them, or the family doesn't want to help with those decisions. And she has some of those resources that she's going to be talking about or working with me on too. There was something else I was going to say about her, but it's escaped me right now. It'll come back.
A lot of times as people are doing that process, they're preparing, a household that's gathered generations of family heirlooms and things. And a lot of times those are going to end up, at an estate sale or a consignment sale or something. So perhaps one adjunct product you could provide would be some archiving of some of those personal items. And
right, so they can remember them.
The people that have tended those for the last 50 years say a little something about a particular curio or heirloom or piece of furniture and how it made its way from the old country to the new, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. I've also have an idea for somebody to kind of an over-the-shoulder shot, another angle of their face, but going through the family album with a child or someone sitting next to them and just having them tell who they are or stir up memories from that too. So it really is, everything is going to be custom. So from that point, it's kind of hard to come up with what to charge for it. But when I spoke to the estate sale person, because she's kind of in the same boat, it's a lot of labor. The editing of this is where all the money comes from, because a few hours of capturing the video, you got to make sure that's good. But then watching the footage and selecting what to use and how to put it together is where all the time comes from. So I asked her about how she decides to charge and what it's going to be, and it is by the hour, but she has enough experience. She knows how long it takes to do certain things. She says an average move for someone is at least $2,000 to $2,500. And that's where I'm seeing my price point start too. The lady that's in Chicago is a little higher than that. I think she starts at about $3,500 to about $6,000. So it is an investment. I don't want to eliminate the audience that can't make that price point though. So that's where I think about the things like just setting up a camera and letting them go through the book. Not do as much editing, just kind of be there to capture it with some good light and good sound, So I'm not opposed to doing that, and I'll probably do some of that to kind of get started. The average turnaround time, based on what I've read on her website, is about a month from the time that the project starts until it's delivered. That's also based on availability of people. She'll interview not only the key people, but other family members, especially if it's for an anniversary or something like that. Sometimes it's a surprise for the couple's anniversary, so they're not even interviewed. It's everybody else talking about them. And then you go to the event and capture a highlight video, So there's lots of spin-offs with it, I see. And because my son does own a video business, I have access to all of the equipment that I need and all the new computers that we need. And his expertise, once I've kind of gotten what I think is the final cut, then he'll kind of help me make sure that it's really the way it needs to be. Yeah.
So when you're editing and archiving, and you've got a couple points, but I'll talk quick. you know, you're taking 5 minutes of video and knocking it down to 25 seconds of something that you
Yeah.
can put in a bigger video. Do you keep the original, do you archive the original stuff that people give you?
We do. We don't give it to
Yeah,
them.
well,
Yeah.
because this is kind of a conceptual thought that may help you or someone. I have a startup and they've got a 3-minute video. It's called Bandit Ball People, most of you, but there's like 50 people in it, and it's 1 to 2 second snippets or videos of just faces that that have been involved in my project. What if you could take, somebody's watching a broader thing on that, like that on YouTube or whatever, click on that still and pull a longer video out of each of those, you know what I mean? So people, oh, there's Uncle Lester, I know that he, you know, chased the dog down I wonder if that's you know what I mean? That's probably easy to do, or for your son to do, but that would be cool if that was you know, mine is just, I have an old camera, mine is just like podunk, it's cool, but.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know, that might be something you could consider if it's available with your archiving,
Sure.
where you know what I mean, you've taken the time to edit, but people might want to see, if they look on YouTube, a little more of whatever that short depiction is.
Sure.
Whoever, yeah. Anyway,
Well, some people speak very well in front of the camera and know how to tell their story. So you could just let it roll and stop it when they're done. And all you had to do is download the footage and put a title on it, and there you go. But others that do a lot of and pondering, and you know, that's where you have to kind of make them sound better. So the consultation yesterday, it's her grandparents. They live up in one of the suburbs. And she's, after we talked about her idea of getting everybody in a restaurant and visiting, how that probably wouldn't give her what she wanted, as I talked with her more, she told me that her grandfather had had a stroke already. So she said, like, he attended my wedding this year, and they won the dance of the, you know, married the longest. And the DJ came out to him to say, you got any advice for the new couple? And he started to talk and only got about halfway through his sentence before the DJ said, well, thank you very much. And, you know, because he's slow talking now since he's had his stroke. And I said, that will be a challenge then, to have him actually tell his own story. So how can we let him be a part of this and not have him take 5 minutes to say a sentence? That was an exaggeration, but anyway, so we kind of talked about the idea of showing him, capturing B-roll of him interacting with all of his relatives, and let his wife do the narration about some of the things. Not that he won't be represented, but let's not make him talk for half an hour, you know, because it won't have enough content. So, yeah, sure.
What did you do before this, and at what point in your life did you realize that this was the type of stuff that would...
Oh, thanks for asking that. Yeah, so I sold health insurance for the last 18 years. I retired the end of June, and my son started his business 7 years ago. In fact, we started out doing weddings. And when I say we, because he was just out of high school, going to ICC, trying to find himself, and one of my friends asked him to do her daughter's wedding. And, well, she asked me first, and I said, no, he's 19, what does he know about shooting somebody's wedding? Well, she said, that's why we want him, because he'd been doing music videos and all fun, you know, boy things. And she said, we just want him to do whatever he can. And he hit a home run the first time. And then he went, wow, maybe I should do this, which launched him to go to film school. And we started doing weddings when he'd come home in the summer. And I loved it. I would capture all the documentation, you know, set up the tripods, do the full service, all the reception speeches and dances and all that stuff. And I'd edit all that. He'd do all the beauty shots for the highlight video. That's really the star, you know. Share it on YouTube. Everybody gets to see your wedding in about 5 minutes. And that's about the attention span, too. So we were doing, you know, 20 weddings a year for the first couple years when he was still in school, then came back to Peoria. He's been in business for 7 years now. And I'd always done his bookkeeping and that kind of stuff too. on the side while I had my full-time job. So I was very anxious to retire and start working full-time at Pat Clark Productions. And we've had so many requests for social media content that I thought, I'm going to look into this further. And quickly realized that that's really why I started Co-Starters. I was going to try and develop this kind of social media arm, content creation, which we still do, but I wanted to even go further and find social media people to help me with it. I soon determined that was not at all an interest to me. And then Andrew helped me realize that the things I wanted to do at Pat Clark Productions were not really of interest to me. They were, but it was really Patrick's business. And so that's when I pivoted to do something that was still a spin-off of it, but something that could be mine. That's not to say that he's not going to help me. You know, we're in a business networking group, and I presented at Co-Starters 2 weeks ago on a Monday night, and Tuesday morning I presented to our BNI group. And I got 5 referrals from the 26 people in that organization right there. Now, 2 of them were for business histories. That's going to be for Patrick. You know, he's going to do interviews with leadership and, talk about other aspects. That needs a more professional eye and better gear than what I operate. So that's why I wanted something that could work in conjunction with him. It's unlikely that I'm actually going to start a separate business called this. I don't see the point. I can just run everything through Pat Clark Productions. So it's time for him to be more independent, and it's time for me to be more independent and still be able to play off of each other. So.
Well, we like to wrap up every presentation by asking one important question, and that is, how can we at 1 Million Cups and in the startup community here in the area help you accomplish the next steps that you have in mind?
Tell your friends about this concept. Talk to your own families about the idea. And even if you don't hire us to do it, the holidays are coming, and it's a great time to talk with your families and maybe come up with ways you can document it yourself. So that's really the goal. I hate to think of myself as a senior, but I am. I have to face the facts. And
You go, girl.
yeah. So I don't want to keep harping on the fact that, I'm old, but I'm getting older, and I'm finding that I have a lot of things that I still want to share. But some young people don't want to listen. Believe that? That's old school, or we have a better way of doing it. So.
But they will someday.
They will someday.
To have what you're
So I've decided, I'm not going to tell them what to do. Let them figure that out. But I'm going to tell them about things that happened to me, things that I accomplished that I was proud of, and maybe there'll be a lesson from it sometime. So I guess after I finish my parents, I'm going to turn the camera on myself for a while. Anyway, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
I'm glad you were here today.
Well, thank you.